Welcome back, horror family. So, the inevitable is going to happen. We will begrudgingly get the unwanted sequel to the poorly constructed zombie film World War Z. In 2006, Brad Pitt's Plan B Entertainment outbid Leonardo DiCaprio's production company to secure the rights to Max Brooks' best-selling novel World War Z, An Oral History of the Zombie War. 2006 was 2 years after the release of the Dawn of the Dead remake, and World War Z the film was released in 2013, 3 years following the premiere of The Walking Dead. So the years in between were hotbed for zombie films right in the middle of the zombie craze in pop culture. It is speculated that Plan B paid high 6-digit to 7-digit numbers for the rights to the book, with some estimates reporting anywhere from 8 to 12 million. I am sure if I am wrong, the comment section will blow up to tell me. For some reason, after spending so much money on the rights to the book, they decided to completely ignore the source material. Even if they managed to create a decent horror film, it is a shame the book was ignored for the stories it holds. If you enjoyed the film, I can appreciate your opinion, since as a horror fan, I always like to say that our affection for movies is completely subjective. But plagued with reshoots, script rewrites, and Brad Pitt's hair, we got an attempted knockoff of Fast Zombies from 28 Days Later, combined with poor CGI graphics of zombie hordes climbing a wall looking more like a brown mess. This film, in my opinion, is bad. Incoherently paced, plot holes, and a plane crash scene that makes the fridge scene from the fourth Indiana Jones look reasonable. Now, if unfamiliar with the book, then a brief overview. It is a culmination of short stories tied together by an unnamed UN operative interviewing survivors of the worldwide zombie apocalypse. The narrative is told from their experience, and the reader develops a large spectrum of how the unknown virus spread and what steps normal individuals as well as governments around the world reacted to and dealt with the rise of the undead. I know no matter what, they are going to go through with this sequel. They have the rights to the film, and since the first movie was a financial success despite negative reviews, money is the first priority and they will do as they please. I have an idea for an actual adaptation of the novel that would make for great storytelling in the form of anthology-like structure, with the book's UN representative as the connective plot point that cohesively combines the individual tales to create the bleak, fragmented world left in the wake of a horrendous disease that readers witnessed in the book. I have picked out 6 stories that I felt would give a well-defined understanding of the overall arc explained in the novel. I will go into a synopsis of the story and how I think it would fit and should play out for the film without going into too much detail. If you have read the book, understand that I took liberties with parts of the stories as well as the order they appeared in the novel. And for those of you who have not read the book, I think you should go check it out and be forewarned, there are spoilers. We will start with approximately the beginning of the book and the tale behind Patient Zero, the first case per the commission report in the novel. A Chinese ex-military doctor is called from his small hospital near the Three Gorge Dam to see 7 patients exhibiting symptoms of bizarre illness. He enters a cement room with 7 cots against a single wall and all the orderlies outside refusing to go in. Every patient is running impossibly high fevers as well as having peculiar bites looking to be from a small person. One of the villagers in the remote area explains all the bites came from a young boy, who the doctor insists seeing. He finds the boy bound and gagged in an abandoned building across town. A woman tells the doctor that he was looting in the abandoned city under the water line on the other side of the dam when he was bitten by something unseen. Shortly after the woman alerts him to what happened, the boy breaks his arm loose from his wrist, exposing a broken shard, and pulls himself toward those in the room. They lock the boy in, who bangs heavily against the door. Immediately, the doctor calls a military friend of his who sends a heavily armed unit that takes all of the 7 patients into quarantine, at the same time removing the boy from the house in a body bag. The end of the segment would have the man being asked by the UN rep what he did after, and the doctor saying that he called his daughter, pleading with her to accompany her husband on his next job abroad. The second segment will follow an American surgeon in Brazil who performed illegal organ transplants for rich individuals in need, paid strictly in cash. All the implants were black market, with many originating from China that he inferred possibly came from unwilling prisoners. He tells of a heart surgery with the organ inserted into a wealthy Russian. Following the procedure, he left to go home, his partner agreeing to stay behind and watch their client's vitals. He was shortly called back by one of the nurses, telling him it was an emergency. When he returned, he found one of the assistants inconsolable, and the other told him that the patient flatlined, then stood straight up and attacked the other doctor. Entering the room, he found the man ripping apart the inside of his now dead colleague. Retrieving a gun he had in his office, he ran quickly back into the surgery room, alerting the ravaged client, who turned around to expose black goo protruding from his ripped sutures in the center of his chest. The shot he took went straight into the patient's head. He called the authorities, who came and removed the body, cleaning up any proof of what happened. When the UN rep asks him why they didn't report it, he takes a deep drag of his cigarette and states that the police were on his payroll. He never became fully sure of what happened to the bodies. The third segment is in America. A young woman starts off recalling when her family abandoned their home in Wisconsin, right at the beginning of the Great Panic. This could be a good segment to leave Easter eggs from the book that were important but would be too much for a single movie, such as a television in the background as they're leaving their house, airing segments from the battle at Yonkers. They head north as recommended by the news, since the ghouls freeze in sub-temperatures. Her father knew of a camping ground past the Canadian border. At first, the campground is very communal and pleasant. After months with dwindling resources, it gradually becomes a lawless state for survival. She discloses how her father and mother were arguing one night, and her father left their makeshift tent in possession with her radio. He returned with a metal bucket, holding a stew of meat. They ate, and while eating, she remembers her father silently crying, unable to look his family in the eye. This part could finalize with the woman walking with the rep through the frozen land of the campground, stepping over discarded belongings only to end at a pile of clean-picked human bones. The fourth segment is one of my favorites in the book, about a cargo pilot flying supply runs between clear zones and isolated zones across the country. Her plane crashes in an infested zone outside of Atlanta, miles away from the near safe zone. Landing in a forest, she locates her co-pilot hanging from his parachute in a tree, with a group of zombies ripping his insides apart. Attempting to locate her position to find an extraction point, she is contacted through her radio by a watcher who witnessed her plane go down. This self-sufficient nomad helps her remember her survival training, encouraging her through tough love, helping her recollect what she needed to do in order to make it out alive. After close calls with a horde of zombies and feral dogs, she makes it to the closest highway, where she is spotted by an overpassing helicopter. Arriving at the safe zone, she inquires about this watcher she spoke to over the past couple of days in the zombie zone. The officials at the base don't know who she is referring to. She explains that she was in constant contact to a local watcher who helped her throughout the ordeal. The official shows her that her radio was broken the entire time, insinuating that the person she thought she was talking to didn't exist, and it was possibly just in herself. The fifth segment is a Chinese naval officer who took a submarine AWOL, accompanied by his entire crew and their family. Knowing they would be wanted fugitives with orders to be destroyed on sight, they stay for months in the deepest parts of the ocean, moving from South America to the Horn of Africa. This could also be a good moment for Easter eggs referencing the novel. For example, when they surface in possibly the Indian Ocean, they witness boats attempting to leave the Indian harbor, with victims of underwater zombies or the boat being pulled apart by a renegade ship. They could also witness from a distance the atomic war between Pakistan and Turkey. When supplies run low, they come upon a Polynesian island with hundreds of docked ships, bartering their self-sustained power to the island for supplies and replenishable goods for the sub. After months on the island with no sign of retaliation from the remaining fragment of the Chinese government, a large ship docked in the harbor is blown up by a torpedo. Realizing they were found upon by the remnants of the Chinese military, they attempt to escape, but have another nuclear sub tracking them. They make for the bottom to hide, going silent, only to discover that thousands of zombies are at the outside of the ship, banging the metal, not only revealing their location, but with the potential to create a block in their reactor exhaust. They have no other option but to part with chase underway. Hitting the other sub with the torpedo, the renegade group makes for the Arctic Ocean, hiding under the ice for many more months. After a time, radio contact is received. It is a splinter faction, asking them where their location is, explaining that the military and what was left of the old government has fallen. They are needed for the war effort to rebuild China. This segment could end with the captain and commanders weighing the decision to trust the source or not. I think the final one should be a side story from the K9 unit tale. Dogs were used to aid soldiers during the reclaiming era of the war. Various breeds were primed since birth for scouting in order to assist with locating zombies. Cameras were incorporated on some outfits, then sent into abandoned cities or towns to get information on the amount of ghouls, assessing the danger when heading into the locations. One instance, a canine scout was surrounded with what appeared to be hopeless cause for escape. The dog's human partner prepared to rescue her longtime teammate, but was physically stopped by a commanding officer. The order was the scout was not a priority, and she was an asset that could not be risked for a retrieval. The soldier watched her partner of a few years ripped apart by a pack of zombies on the video monitor. Later on, she walked up to the commanding officer and shot him in the head, placing her gun on the ground, willingly arrested. After tribunal, she was hung for her crime. This segment could end with her sentence about to be carried out, saying that the dog was a part of her, willing to give his life for her as she would have done for him. Other dog soldiers in the background shaking their head, lowering their eyes in displeasure and anger. I feel that the end of the movie should be that the dog soldier sitting on a desk across the UN rep with his old retired canine Daoshin right beside him, explaining that the true loss during World War Z was their humanity, and he wasn't sure that could ever come back. These stories, I feel, are perfect examples of the trials and tribulations that Max Brooks portrays in his novel. The physical, along with the emotional sacrifices governments and individuals alike are challenged with, is not primarily that of the living dead, but has many faces. It was more than just a zombie book, which the film shallowly makes it out to be. A film called World War Z should be able to demonstrate the many facets that the world faces, creating a dark, horrific tone of hopelessness and truly the end of humanity as we know it. What are your thoughts on this concept for a loyal World War Z film? If you read the book, are there parts you feel I left out and should be incorporated? If you haven't, do you think this is a film you would be interested in? Comment in the section below, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Stay scared.